Hello, darling. Nice to see you. It's been a long time. You're just as lovely as you used to be. Today I'd love to show you the easiest way I know how to play the song Hello Darlin. There's 5 chords in total. I play it in the key of G, but like I say in other videos, you're encouraged to choose a key that fits your voice. That way you can hit the lowest notes and not strain, and you can hopefully hit the highest notes and not strain there as well. So that's kind of the comfort zone, I call it. So if you can find the key that works, maybe it's in a C for you. Maybe it's a C, F, and G. Or maybe it's a G, but with the capo on the first fret. Technically, that changes it into a G sharp. So every time you put it up a fret, the capo, it brings it up half a step. But the point is it still feels like a G to you. It's just a shortened guitar. It's still a G formation. So in your brain, if that's the key, or if you only know 3 chords, maybe you only know how to play a G, C, and D. Well, that's how you probably already know it. That's a great workaround. Just get a nice capo, and your G becomes anything you need it to. And if you're the singer of a song at a jam or in a band or around a campfire, if you're the singer, it's up to you. You're the boss of what key it's in, and it's everyone else's job to follow along in that key. So I've chosen to play Hello Darlin in the key of G. There's a little bit of straining because Conway had a great range. He could go to the lowest of the lows and the highest of the highs. And not everyone can do that. I definitely can't. But it's a great song, and I do my best, and I'm sure you will too. In the key of G, again, there's five chords that I use in the song. There's, I believe, 8 sections to the song. It's like 8 verses. There's no real chorus or bridge. It just feels like just more of a ballad, a story with 8 verses, and they're not all identical, the chord formation. They're broken up into, like, the first 4 are the same, and then the second half of the song, the next 4 are the same. And what it is the difference is that there's an A thrown in, a third of the way in, and then 2/3 of the way in there's another A. And it's getting used to, that's the biggest thing to remember. There's a lot of words in the song, so it takes a while to memorize the words, unless you have a sheet in front of you. But it's to go to that A once in a while. That's the biggest hurdle I found for myself in this song, is to remember, oh yeah, this is the part where I go to an A instead of. So when we get there, you'll know what I'm talking about. So let's try it. I'm going to play it nice and slow. This might turn out to be a long video because it's a long song. And at the end, we'll play the entire song together at a pretty good pace, at a closer to normal pace, continuously through to the end. And hopefully by then you'll be able to follow along. Let's begin the song in a G, nice and slow. Hello, darling. And then a D. Nice to see you. And now we'll begin the strum pattern. It's been a long... Right here is a G7th. And this is the other trickiest part of the song. It's a quick change to the G7th. And if you're not familiar, maybe if you're a beginner and you only know a handful of chords, you haven't got into the 7th, the G7th or the C7, all these your minor chords and all that, you don't have to use the G7th yet until you get familiar with it. Maybe someday throw it in if you can. But the song works fine without it. Let's begin again. And it's quite a quick change up to the G7, but we'll do it and you'll get the hang of it. From the top, in a G. Hello, darling. D. Nice to see you. Back to G. It's been a long G7. Time, you're just as C, lovely as you used to, back to home base. How's your new love? D, are you happy? Hope G, you're doing. Here's that quick change to the G7. Fine, just to A, know it means so much to D, me. And it may seem overwhelming if you're a beginner. Not every verse is like this. This is pretty much the most complicated it gets, because there's an A in there. You're learning to go to the G7th rather quickly if you're not familiar with that chord. So let's try it from the top. Do that whole section again, the first verse. With the dramatic intro. Hello, darling. D, nice to see you. Back to G. And start strumming. It's been a long G7th time. You're just as C, lovely as you, back to G. How's your new love? D, are you happy? Hope, back to G, you're doing. Quick change to G7th. Fine, here's an A. Means so much to D, me. Back to G. And that back to G at the end of the verse is, you're already into the next verse. So there's not much of a break between the verses in this song. So let's begin the song again. I'm going over this first part because it's most complicated. Once you get this, the rest of the verses will fall in place very easily. So the dramatic intro. Hello, darling. And then a D. Nice to see you. Back to G. It's been a long G7 time. You're just as C as you, back to G. How's your new love? D, are you happy? Back to G. Hope you're doing. You can feel the build up to G7th. Fine, A, just to know it means so much to D. What's that, darling? I'm already into the next verse. How am I doing? I'm G, doing all. You can feel that build up to that big note, and the big note is the G7th. Fine, just to see, know it means so much to G. What I'm trying to G7 is I see, love you, and I miss you in G. And I'm so C, sorry that D, I did you G. And then a D just before you start the next verse. So you can feel that's kind of a cluster in itself. Those few verses have their own thing, because at the end it has that last D, which is sort of like a turnaround, and that's the biggest break you get, is that, and then you start into that next group of verses. So it's a tricky song where you don't get a break to think. So until you get the words, I do recommend clicking on the Google link below and getting the words in front of you. Maybe go get them printed out somewhere and take a marker and scribble in the chords, and I write the chord exactly over the word where your fingers need to change, so you can see when to change exactly. And if you don't want to play the G7th, you can just say, hope you're doing, stay in G, fine, just to see, knowing. Until I knew that there was a G7th in there, that's all I did. I stayed in G. So if you don't want to play the G7th, don't play it. Just stay right there in G. So that takes a little bit of the load off. Okay, we're in the second part of the song, the second half, which is the next 4 verses. And you've already figured out what's going on, when, and how to get there. So the next section, I like to begin again with the dramatic G, the dramatic 1 strum. I call it dramatic because Conway nails it. 1 strum G, look up, darling. And then a D, let me kiss you. Back to G. Just for old time G7, let me see in my arms one more G time. Thank you, darling. Up to D, may God bless you, and may G, each step you G7th take. Here's that A again. Bring you closer to the things you seek to define. Back to home base, G. Goodbye, darling. I've got a D. Go now. Back to G. Gotta try to find a G7 to lose these C memories of a love so warm, and back to G. And if you should ever G7th it in your C heart too, back to G, forgive me. Come back, C, darling, I'll be D waiting for. This is the end of the song, and he does something different here. Another hurdle. So he says, come back, C, I'll be D for. Instead of going back to home base like it did in the last cluster, you go to the C. I'll be waiting for C, you. Do, do, G. It's a nice polished ending. Just kind of steps down, and he slows it down too. So he says, come back in a C, come back C, I'll be. So try to slow down while you're doing it, if you like. And then a D, I'll be waiting for C, you. And that's it. That's the end of the song. Whew. That's a big one. This song is not an easy thing to get used to for vocals and lyrics or the guitar chords. because it's not like your traditional country song, or any song for that matter, that has, the same, you learn the first verse and it just continues like that. Once you get the first verse, your fingers know what they're doing and they can do their thing while you worry about the lyrics. Not in this song, it changes. And instead of that pattern happening in one verse, or that pattern happening in one chorus, the pattern happens in 4 verses or 4 paragraphs. That's one pattern. And the second half of the song, the other 4 paragraphs I had to look at it and say, what's going on here? When does this repeat itself, this cycle? So there's 2, it's interesting how to do it, but you'll feel it. And when you write the chords down, like I'd recommended, you print it out on paper and pen it in what the chords are and where the changes are. And then you can look and say, and draw the line. Okay, this first section, once I learn the first 4, the second 4 are identical as far as the notes and chords on the guitar, until the end of the song, where he buttons it up by saying, "Come back, see, darling, I'll be D4." And he slows down, "See you." It's a dramatic ending too, come to think of it, thanks to Conway. I think every song has something dramatic in it. That's what I love about Conway Twitty songs. So let's try Conway Twitty's Hello Darlin' the entire way through, a little faster pace. I hope you can play along with me. We can get through it together. And I had a lot of fun showing you my version and my take on Hello Darlin'. It's a classic, and I know you've been itching to learn this song, and stick with it. Once you get the lyrics down and figure out the chords the very first few times, you will remember the chords, and it won't be an issue after you've... but just make sure you keep playing this one regularly so you can, so it'll stay fresh. Hello, darling. Nice to see you. It's been a long time. You're just as lovely as you used to be. How's your new love? Are you happy? Hope you're doing fine. Just to know it means so much to me. What's that, darling? How am I doing? I'm doing all right, except I can't sleep and I cry all night till dawn. What I'm trying to say is I love you and I miss you, and I'm so sorry that I did you wrong. Look up, darling, let me kiss you, just for old time's sake. Let me hold you in my arms one more time. Thank you, darling, may God bless you, and may each step you'll take bring you closer to the things you seek to find. Goodbye, darling, I've got to go now. Gotta try to find a way to lose these memories of a love so warm and true. And if you should ever find it in your heart to forgive me, come back, darling, I'll be waiting for you. Goodbye, darling. Thanks for watching.